Get sales lessons from experts and entrepreneurs
Go out there and be the spokesperson and the representative for the brand.
on how you can bring your A game in selling.
Making sales requires putting yourself out there and being vulnerable.
To start and scale your business.
We need to negotiate for what we deserve.
This is Ace the Sales Podcast, and here's your host, Roshni Barronia.
Hello and a warm welcome to a special episode of Ace the Sales Podcast, which is a unique one because today we have picked up a very niche industry to talk about its sales challenges and the channels that might push you to think differently about approaching sales in your business. We are talking about the pharma industry. I remember the time when we went to hospitals and after 12 p.m., there used to be a long queue of medical representatives, MRs, whom we call, waiting to meet the doctor to show their samples of the new medicine. But now in digital era, these sales channels are bound to get revamped, especially after the COVID when doctors too have got used to online consultations and telemedicine. Moreover, there have been recent government policy changes, at least in India, that have forced pharma companies to think about sales and marketing strategies in a different way. So today, let's understand what are these disruptions and how to navigate the digital space of marketing for pharma companies. And to discuss, I have just the perfect expert with me. I'm sitting across Saumya Prakash, who is the co-founder and director of Multiplier AI Solutions, which is a digital marketing company for pharma companies. They are heavily using AI for lead generation to automation. So let's discuss with Saumya herself everything about pharma marketing. Hello, Saumya. A very warm welcome to Ace the Sales. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you so much, Roshni. It's such a wonderful experience to be on this show. And it definitely inspires so many businesses and entrepreneurs across the globe today. So very, very happy and enthusiastic to be on this.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you with us. In fact, this is one of the very few topics we have ever discussed actually on this show, specifically about an industry, which is pharma industry and how to do sales and marketing in that. So it's going to be very interesting, I'm sure. So let's begin our line of questions with you, Saumya. And as I know that you are an engineer, you have diverse experience across data analytics, business intelligence, and international marketing. But what I want to focus with you in our discussion today is to identify that how the healthcare space, especially pharma marketing, is something that you thought of to get into business. Like, can you share a little bit about what Multiplier AI Solutions does and how did you identify this gap in the market to fulfill through your services?
Yeah, so yes, I did begin my career as an engineer. I graduated from BITS Pilani in computer science. And the traditional path is generally to go for an engineering and then go for a top-notch MBA. So I did an MBA later in finance. Then started working across diverse industries. Was a part of the semiconductor industries and then later a part of fintech. However, I think the healthcare calling to me came to me as a kind of my personal experience first, and then it got married with a sense of purpose. So my father, when I was in the second year of BTech, he was an IAS officer, and we lost him to a medical negligence. He was diabetic, and the particular medical officer attending to him couldn't really understand the complexities of his treatment. He had a sudden rush of glucose, and things just went haywire, and we lost him within 24 hours. That was a big setback to us. And I think thereon something, set in my mind that yes, there is something which should have been done as a kind of a process and as a kind of a technology intervention to avoid this medical negligence. So, this is somewhere which kind of instilled in my brain. And this again took more deeper roots when I saw my mother go through an ovarian cancer cycle. So again, ovarian cancer, as we know, is a very silent killer. It affects a lot of women in stage 3 and stage 4. And there's very little that we can really do to preempt it. So these two things, motivated me to start looking at healthcare from point of view of a purpose as well as an opportunity. At the same time, when I was working with multiple companies, I was part of data, I was part of solutioning, I could understand business fundamentals. But I did not see that kind of innovation being applied into healthcare, whereas it was touching everybody's life and it required that intervention. But the kind of skills, the kind of technology applications, and I'm talking of this around 10 years back, that kind of intervention was not present. So I think that set the ball rolling in my mind that, here it is a sea of opportunity within healthcare, but possibly people are still very focused on fintech, on telecom, on retail, outsourcing models, but they're not looking at, what would really be a big opportunity going forward. And that's where we thought that we could come in and make a difference here. So we chose healthcare because it would make a big change. And we thought, that definitely we could add value in the value chain. As all entrepreneurs think that we can change the world. So yeah, something similar on those lines. But it did require qualified skills and it did require technology integration. So what Multiplier does is we started looking at healthcare and data from a very totally different perspective. And what we do for pharma companies is we help them in looking at marketing from a data-driven approach. So it's not just based on a door-to-door or a MR-based analysis, but it's looked at from a central marketing perspective on data. Similarly, we help them understand what's the patient outcome that they can expect or a patient response they can expect from a data analysis and a data insights perspective. So we do a range of services for pharma companies, starting from taking any particular brand or a therapy area, understand what is the sentiment presently associated with that particular brand for the patient. So how does the patient perceive that brand? Using Twitter, using various channels or patient forums, we scrape the data, we analyze the data, we understand how is the patient looking at that particular drug. Is he positive? Is he negative? Is he neutral? Is he not able to get that availability? What is his sentiment? And from that point, we help the pharma companies in identifying a very clear roadmap along with the patient journey. So where should they message, to which physicians they should approach, and to which physicians what messages should go, what should the channel of communication. Everything is very logical and data driven. It's not based on just past behavior.
So that's so interesting, Saumya. You are saying that the pharmaceutical companies need to have a customer focus, a patient outcome focus, which traditionally they didn't used to have. And it seems like pharma companies need to adapt and evolve from the legacy of being B2B sales companies to become more of a D2C business where they have the focus on customer, aka the patient centricity, drive more brand awareness and build those personal connections. So how have you actually enabled your clients and the companies that you work with to build trust with their end customer, who can be healthcare professionals, physicians, patients? So if you can just take us through a few touch points that you do in your business or your services.
Sure, Rashmi. So there are two interesting, parts of this question. The first question is, how do they build the confidence or the rapport with the physician and the entire ecosystem? And the second part is, how do we actually do that? Once this trust is established, how we make an executable plan around it. So first is regarding the trust factor. It's very important to understand that, pharma is a very heavily regulated industry. And it's a very complex industry, right from the research stage to manufacturing to supply chain, and then finally the marketing piece. It's one of the most complex industries. And that's the reason why, adapting technology is also a challenge for them. So they have to abide by so many rules and regulations, and one small mistake could really impact at the end of the day. The spectrum of it is the end user whose life is at stake. So that's the reason why technology has to be very carefully applied in this industry. How we build that confidence to them is one, provide them relevant use cases. So for instance, if we are working with pharma today, we have a background of around 6 to 7 years of working with the top leading hospital chains within India. So we were working with Apollo, almost all brands like Apollo Spectra, Credil, Clinics, hospitals. Similarly with Manipal, the entire chain, we were working with 6 out of top 10 chains in India. And that gave us complete understanding of how a physician and a patient relationship works across various departments. So we worked very, very detailed way with various departments like cardiology, oncology, ortho, almost the entire spectrum. And this was at pan-India level. So we had millions of records of data where we were analyzing the data from the labs, from the prescription data, from the past genetic history. And sometimes there were like almost 1,000+ parameters per patient. And we were synthesizing that and doing patient risk profiling. And this was being done like in and out over years. So that gave us the confidence to prove to pharma that we really understand the healthcare domain. On our board at a time when we were developing our first product, we had almost 20 physicians on our advisory board who were practicing physicians with 10, 15 years of experience who were vetting each and every algorithm. They were specialists from the particular field. So that's the kind of inputs that we have taken to build our products. So we showed them relevant use cases and we showed them how carefully each and every algorithm was written. And the second thing is we also complied, we showed them compliances. For example, data is a very important aspect, how data is anonymized and how it should not be. So we took up ISO 27001 certification. We showed them that we maintained complete anonymization. There's no data download or upload possible. We maintained very strict protocols of using all the analysis over the cloud with multiple layers of protection so that they are comfortable. That they don't have to worry about these basic hygiene and sanity factors, which is important going forward. And these are regulatory compliances that are true. So this gives them the comfort that we are in safe hands and these people know their stuff. And then it comes to the execution model. So as you rightly said, the pharma opinions are changing. And the older traditional model of an MR going to the physician is very, very different today. So, the physicians themselves are very different. I think post-COVID, they are much more digitally engaged with their patients and they expect a similar digital engagement with their MRs on the brands. They are triple screen users. Mostly they have a laptop, they have a mobile, and they're also engaged with multiple forums. They are 2 to 3 screen users. They don't have multiple, they don't want to be kind of having a baggage of communication. They don't want to get an email, WhatsApp, CME plus the MR at their door. It's very challenging from a physician's perspective. They don't have the time. And in that 3 or 4 minutes that an MR gets,
In fact, in the conversation when I was mentioning that, yes, I remember those long lines of MRs, I used to actually in a way like feel very sympathetic towards them that middle of the day it's so hot and yet they are poor guys lined up there. So it actually is very, very pitiful that traditional way of selling or the traditional approach that the pharma company was following is the same MR going to the physicians. But yes, COVID or the pandemic has been a big push, a massive push in bringing about this change because there wasn't an option. You had to think out of the box. And as patients, I think we also got used to taking online consultations. And hence that triggered for the physicians also to adapt to a digital way of delivering their consultations, and hence the MRs now need to find a new way to approach these physicians, right? So that's a great funnel that has now become like very evident, and it's opened up a new channel for pharma companies to marketing. So now, since you touched upon the pandemic piece, can you show a little bit into the marketing strategies or the digital strategies that have come into the picture, the fine tuning of the messaging and the campaigns that you have been developing and working on to address this change of online consultations into the medical space?
So, to understand this question, we need to step a little bit back and see that the whole environment has also kind of changed. So, today, governments want a lot of data, regulators also want a lot of data. It's just not the marketing departments that are asking the data. For example, as you know, that there are certain regulations like 194R in India or the Sunshine Act in the US, where reporting has to be done for almost each and every physician over a very small amount of over 20,000 rupees, and this includes free samples. So everything has to be reported back to them, and this is in itself a very big challenge for the pharma companies because there's no consistent set of data in the first place of physicians. So when we get the data from even the top clients without naming them, I would say almost 60% of the data is absolutely junk, which is not even recognizable. Like,
Really?
yeah, so it would be like, say, Dr. Roshni Baronia in one place, another place it would be Dr. Roshni B, another third place it would be Dr. Baronia. And then supposing you had an MBBS and then later you became an MD. So in some place it's just MBBS, another place it's an MD. Then you may have shifted in hospital in the say 5 years of your career. So that is again inconsistent. We really do not understand what kind of, these are the basic requirements. Apart from that, we don't even know what interests you today. Like what's your super specialization or what interests you today in terms of what journals are you reading. So we have to first understand the starting point when we looked at this problem, this huge problem was, okay, let's look at data, but we had no data to look for.
Exactly. Where to draw the insights from when there is no data? What to analyze?
Correct. So, that's where the starting point. And that's also a big opportunity in India because if you see, in contrast to US pharma spends 30% of their marketing spend on data analysis and data analytics related projects, whereas in India it wasn't done, and that's the reason why we are kind of in this particular situation. But that's a huge opportunity, and what we did, we developed a fully automated engine which scraps multiple areas like the particular patient, the doctor's profile on social media, the educational websites like NMC, his journals and PubMed, or whatever sources he's available on, and also goes through the particular hospitals he's working in and pulls out that information, puts that into real time, does deduplication, merges them, and finally, at the end of 4 or 5 levels of very deep filtering in a 99% match, we get almost a 95% accurate data with 99% fill rates on 60 plus parameters. So this doesn't just include the qualification, but also includes the interest levels, the particular physician's presence, which locality he's in, what are his competitors like, what's his interest area, what kind of journals is he reading or advising, what is his voice, and what's his patient community speaking about him. All those things. We even go to the extent of trying to understand that is he a scientific leader? Because some physicians are very scientifically oriented, whereas some are very marketing oriented. They really connect with the people. So it depends on the personality of the particular physician. So we categorize them and segment them. That's the first.
Oh, so you do the behavioral analysis also.
This is important because
Wow.
end of the day, we are dealing with people, and understanding how people will react to my particular proposition is very important to make a serious effort in that direction. So we understand the psychographics, then we identify, okay, now I have understood my list of data. I have a clean set of data. Now let me understand from this entire 5,000 or 10,000 set of physicians, who are my key opinion leaders? Who are my brand champions? Who are the people who really align with my brand messaging? And then I pull out, it's like, putting a matchstick in a dark room. Suddenly I have a list of only 100 KOLs whom I should go after. So it makes my life better.
What is KOL for the benefit of
It's
listeners?
the key opinion leaders.
Key opinion
Key
leaders.
opinion
Right.
leaders, they call it as a key opinion leaders in pharma companies, which means that the most prominent physicians or the doctors who are advising your drug or therapy to the patients and who really feel very strong about that particular drug, that this drug will work on this particular segment of patients. So they speak about it. So they may be present on forums, they may be attending CMEs for that, or they are prescribing their drugs, and they're also asking their patients to, kind of propagate this message. They're asking them to stick to the treatment protocol. Don't skip this in the middle. So these are the people who are kind of proponents because see, in medical, no advertising will work as much as a doctor whom a patient trusts, saying that this drug will work on you. Continue this. It's all relationship driven. It's all mutual trust driven. So when a doctor says that you will get well, even if it's just a simple pill, a sugar pill, it still works.
Yes. Especially in our society, belief works better than medicine. That's the kind of ideology people follow.
So doctor's word is very important, and that's where we work on. So we identify who are your key influencers, and then work and help the marketing team focus the energy of the marketing representatives, the medical representatives, on these keywords. So they know, okay, fine, I need to focus on them, And then I need to understand what will they be interested in. So we give them a clear understanding of their profiling and what they would be interested in. What kind of messaging should be given to these particular people. So we also understand whether he's an avid emailer, or is he somebody who doesn't like to read email, he just likes to go on WhatsApp, or he's somebody who's very interested in scientific journals. So you approach him with the journal, or if he wants something for his patient community, so he wants to interact with them more frequently. So what will work for that?
So that kind of a personalized marketing campaign you are able to develop. So wow, that's mind blowing, because at one end I'm seeing the data driven approach where you are collating the data, putting it in order, and then deriving inferences and insights from it. And then actually you're also putting it into action with respect to, okay, now how do we create a messaging or an outreach personalized to this particular physician or the patient or the end customer for your client. So that is very interesting. So could you just help us understand it better by taking us through any of the campaigns that you have run for your clients? It will be like a better example for us to understand.
I'll just give a context of an example from a cardiovascular case study that we did. This was done on behalf of Medtronic. Now, Medtronic is a company which develops heart stents, some kind of devices which help in cardiovascular treatments. So they gave us a case study to study around 250 patients for one of the leading hospitals called SRMS in Bareilly. And these were patients who were suffering from cardiovascular diseases, but we were given the task of identifying high risk dormant patients for them. So these high risk dormant patients means they were very high risk, but they did not know. The patients do not know that they are high risk. So it was only the data pointers that we had to use, and we skimmed through all the data, like lab data, their head and genetic data, their prescription data. Out of 250, we found 40 patients and subjects which we found to be extremely high risk and dormant. And many of them were under 40 years of age. And surprisingly, they had not visited the hospital in the last 2 years. And this was a real alarming bell for us. We reported this back to our client MDT, and MDT took it at a higher priority with the marketing team. These 40 people were asked to come for a free camp and undergo certain diagnostics. And it was very surprising. Out of 40 people, 13 people had to go for a pacemaker surgery in the next 2 weeks. So and pacemaker is not a very simple surgery, so if they had not gone for the pacemaker surgery, they would have possibly had a silent heart attack very, very soon. It was really that bad. And it was really shocking to us because these people did not know this. So it's one of the case studies which opened up, the importance of how data can play a very pivotal role in an entire patient journey.
That's so critical piece, because, and I believe probably pharma has been one of the slowest to adopt to digital innovations, but thanks to you, you are bringing it to the forefront and helping so many companies taking to digital and then making good use of it. I also just want to touch upon one of the key factors that you mentioned, which is about interacting with the decision makers and KOLs, which is the key opinion leaders, right? And since this is a podcast on sales, and in B2B sales, especially, decision makers play a key part. They have a big influence on the outcomes of any negotiation or any partnership or businesses that is being happening. So can you show us a little bit of light into how have you forged industry partnerships to strengthen digital branding effort and serve your clients better? Because I'm sure that is something which will, because I believe pharma marketing happens at a massive scale, right? The outreach of it is a volume game, and the partnerships, the industry partnerships, especially with the KOLs, is of high importance. So how does Multiplier AI solutions forge that?
So in India, still, Roshni, it's still a fragmented market. We don't have too many physician communities here, though there are associations for various specialties like the Diabetic Association or the ONCO, and there are certain groups which do conduct medical journal or medical expertise based discussions. but largely it is still fragmented and very specialty driven. So we do interact and we collaborate with multiple such forums to understand what's going on within the physician community for that particular specialization, and we try to have that as an input to our real-time evidence and what we are, because this is very important for pharma to get a pulse on. Plus, we also have tools which scrape through a lot of conference data. So the CMEs, and for example, today with the help of AI ML, we have note takers. We can have an author take our notes on meetings, right? So we can have minutes of the meeting recorded and stuff like that. So a far more extension of that is conference data summary. So whatever is being spoken at in a particular conference by various speakers is distilled, is compressed, and again used as an input in our algorithms. So that again gives very real time insight into what people are speaking today. And this is something which we find which has seen a lot of value with some of our, it resonates very well with the medical affairs committees of pharma clients, because again medical affairs is the committee which has to decide a go or a no go. And for them this particular congress information, in the US they call it as a congress information is very important. So multiple levels of liaising. We also are trying to have built relationships with large CDP players like Viva CRM or Google or Microsoft Cloud, so that they can again partner with us. They can provide that extra level of automation, cloud enhancement to the clients through us, and we are in talks with them as well. So together, these the technical, the technology, the domain knowledge, and the marketing have to come together as a unified experience to really deliver that value to the end customer.
So, yeah, let's take a little bit of segue to our conversation, Saumya. And knowing that you are a woman co founder in the field which has historically been male dominated, what are the unique perspectives or strategies that you have brought to the table when you are driving this company of yours, which is into pharma marketing? So, how has the experience been for you, and how have you navigated the initial challenges?
Yeah, Roshni, very, very valid question, especially being interviewed by a woman podcaster. So, see, diversity is, I think, it's something which we just cannot ignore anymore. It's required in all industries, and particularly for pharma, though the workforce could be male dominated, but the end customers are 50% women. End of the day, right? So, they better not neglect women.
Yeah. That's a banner slogan for every industry, I guess.
Correct. So, women decision makers, women contributors are very, very relevant today. And I think all large industries, all large corporations are looking forward to onboard more women. So, in our company also, we've taken diversity very, very seriously. And at all years in my company, I've always had 60% women, or sometimes it's been like more than 60%, and men have been in minority. So, I think it just, it wasn't on intent, but it just happened that, we find very good women who want to come forward, work with us, and they've gone through the cycle of growth. And I think women in general are more hardworking as compared to some industries. I mean, I have found women to be very enterprising today. They are no less in any way. So yes, as a woman co-founder, and I think in our company it helped to have a woman co-founder, because initial set of employees, they look forward to the founders to join a particular company, and if they find a woman on the board, they definitely find that comfort to be able to relate to that company instead of just having a male dominated board. So I think more women should come forward and look at starting their businesses and give opportunities, which other women can also take up. So
That's so interesting. And I totally agree with you that empowered women pull up other empowered women. So that's the way chain works. And since this is a podcast, especially for sales and especially for women entrepreneurs, any message you would like to give to women as to how they can fall in love with selling, or just in general, like how can they think about growing their business more confidently?
So, Roshni, I think as women, we are natural jugglers. We always juggle with our families, our kids. We are always negotiating on our time. So that comes very naturally to us. And I feel that at a certain point, these skills just add up. So as women employees or as women founders, one thing is not to be afraid of sales. Remember that you've been doing it all your life. Whether it was selling your time as an employee or you're discussing why you should work and not take your kid out to the park, you're always selling. So we're always selling. There's nothing to be afraid of selling. Second thing is never be afraid of not being able to close a deal. I think it's a process. Sales is just like any other process. It can be learned, it can be practiced. So you have to go through a particular system, learn I think first and final thing is to know what your client wants. It's something which is said so many times, but it's still the golden rule. Never try to sell. Try to understand what the customer really wants, appreciate that, engage with them, and automatically your service will be sold. That's the number one thing. Second thing is follow a particular system and an approach to selling. Do your research well, study the competition, look at pricing, look at what are your pros and cons, where you should be able to make an impact. Even go through the simple things like reading the LinkedIn profile of the person you are meeting. What would appeal to him? Have they given any recent contracts to a particular company which competes directly with you? These kind of things can be also set out by a team which can support you, or you can set out certain time before you have the interview. So have a clear process to enable you for the sales. Practice, engage your customer prospect, and then don't be afraid to lose, because sales is a tough job, but it's rewarding. Out of 9 rejections, you get one success, but that one success will cover for the 9 rejections, which is absolutely fine. So I think this is, and I feel that, end of the day, it's just not about sales. Your delivery is the real competitive advantage. How you take forward that trust that somebody put in you, how you really delivered on that promise is something that will last. So it's a relationship, and great salespeople, I think, always focus on relationships rather than just, kind of sell something.
So beautiful. And I totally agree with that the sales process doesn't end at the yes. In fact, it starts at yes, because then is the time when you are able to fulfill the promises that you've made to your prospect and the client, right? So beautifully said, Saumya, and it was so lovely to have you over for this conversation. I am actually very much enlightened to know about pharma marketing and how the entire space is now revamping, and you have been at the forefront of driving this digital innovation in this industry. And thank you so much for finding this gap and making people aware about it. Thank you so much, and keep doing the great work you are doing. And it was so lovely to have this conversation. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much, Rajni. It was wonderful to be on this show, and keep inspiring women.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found any value in today's episode, then remember to recommend Ace the Sales podcast to at least one of your business buddies. You never know what insight they will get that can help them in their business. So do some good karma today. Finally, a loud shout out and thank you to the production team of Done For You podcast who helped me in bringing this show to you. If you too are looking to start your podcast for the business, get in touch with DFIP from the link given in show notes. Join me in the next episode for yet another conversation that can help you fall in love with selling. Till then, take very good care of yourself. This is your host, Roshni Baronia, signing off.